Good afternoon, everyone. This is Jim the Keys Bartender coming to you from Key Largo, Florida. It is a beautiful day. It was an eventful day. It was a very interesting day so far. Interesting 2 days. I did, I don't know if I mentioned this. Tuesday night, I performed a wedding ceremony in Tavernier for a young couple. They both work in two separate resorts. I don't want to mention their names because I didn't say I would mention their names, but I did. I can say that I did the ceremony. It was a small affair. They're going to have a bigger wedding, but it was nice to be able to provide that. And then the next day, I had to do a refinance thing, which is not as exciting, I guess, for the listeners to hear. Oh, refinancing! Tell me more. What kind of documents did you have? No, I don't hear that too often. But I did do that, and then I worked yesterday, and it was a beautiful day yesterday. It's a beautiful day today. We had a very high, I guess, volume of people coming through early. I worked all day yesterday. I did something in the morning, refinance, and then I went into work, bartended from 10:30 to around 10 o'clock at night. Right before 10 o'clock. Well, not too bad. It's not exactly a double. I can handle that since I'm healthy now. But we had a nice afternoon, but right around 4:30, 5 o'clock, we were busy for about 2.5 hours. And it wasn't a lot of visitors. There was a lot of people that live down here, a lot of people that have vacation homes down here that live in other parts of South Florida. But there wasn't a lot of people that just come in that are staying, at the hotel across the street and things like that. And that was interesting. We always expect to have the locals, provide us the, kind of business that we need to stay open. But we didn't think it would be all that at that time. And it seems to be earlier, the crowd. And I had some friends come and see me last night. They're all my friends. What am I saying? But I had friends come and see me that have a condo down here. And they live up in Fort Lauderdale, West Palm area, Hollywood area. And they came down and they are fun. They like having a good time. And one of the friends mentioned their daughter, Megan, who is training to be a corpsman in Parris Island, South Carolina. That's the boot camp for the Marine Corps. That she is a big fan of the show. And the lady was very, very adamant about telling me several times that she thinks I'm funny and thinks I have a dry sense of humor. I always thought dry meant something different. That's just, what I mean? But I appreciate, being funny is funny. I want to talk about that a little later, about thinking you're funny, intentionally being funny on demand, and all that stuff. It's so hard. Sometimes, just being yourself is funny, right? It's the way you are. Like one of those, a clown. That's the premise of a clown. A clown is the persona of something with we put on the grease paint and all that stuff, and everything they do is funny. Kind of like Kramer, right? Or, Newman. Or the guys on, what was that? The Theory, The Big Bang. There's probably a ton of shows that just Gilligan. Just the stuff Gilligan, when Gilligan's up to something. Or Will Ferrell in Talladega Nights. Just him doing his everyday thing is just funny. And maybe I shouldn't try to be funny and just be myself. And that's funny enough. But I do appreciate Megan liking this. And I'm supposed to send a shout out to Megan and Buford. Now, I don't know. It was a couple drinks into the night they were. Not me, but them. And maybe, now, I know Parris Island is near Beaufort, South Carolina. So, I don't know if you mentioned that, or Megan, if her boyfriend's name's Buford. I don't want to get anybody in trouble, okay? But I'm supposed to send a shout out to them and thank you for listening. I got a last name too. I'm Avogadro. It's almost like Avogadro's number. I think that's the amount of atoms in a mole of. It's 10 to the 20. It's something 10 to the 26. Avogadro's number. And if it was a phone number, I wouldn't remember it because Avogadro's number. It's just, I don't know where I'm going with that. But thank you for listening. Shout out to you. Keep on listening. And yesterday there was a huge amount of downloads coming from going to Yahala. I think that's Yalaha, a small burg in central Florida. In the area with 40 or 50 miles away from Orlando or the villages. I do have some listeners in the villages and stuff like that. They're not all that way, but I do appreciate my friends coming in, and we had a good old time. And some of the things we talked about was the guys were asking me about one of the menu items, one of our specials. And when I'm bartending and they write down the specials around 5 o'clock, I'm in the thick of things. I'm learning at it while I'm bartending, and I see it on the wall, on the chalkboard. That's pretty much what I know. And they asked me, can you tell me something about the filet Merino? And I looked up at it, and it said filet mignon with blue cheese, tomato, and bacon. And I said, and I repeated it to them, and they laughed, and I go, but there's a story behind it. And that's when I started making up. I guess the thing some people call lying, I talk about making it a little more interesting. So I go into, this is really what happened. And Dan Marino, the famous quarterback from the Miami Dolphins, used to wear a lucky pair of shoulder pads. And he never washed them for years during practice. He used to to just use those pads, and that there were his lucky shoulder pads. If he wore those, he'd never get injured. Okay, he was protecting his shoulders and all that stuff. And there were the light pads and stuff like that. But he also, besides wearing the shoulder pads, he liked to eat BLTs. So, BLTs, bacon, lettuce, tomato, and stuff like that. And he eat them while he's wearing his shoulder pads and stuff like that, and trying to shove it between this is before his Weight Watchers day or whatever the thing that he did. But BLTs, it has lettuce and tomato, and bacon's the only thing that you could be considered somewhat unhealthy, but it's not a lot of it. But he would eat it and get bits of tomato and bacon caught in his shoulder pads. And from lack of washing the shoulder pads, he developed mold, and he would get a cheesy kind of blue cheese smell. And some of the centers and the linemen on the practice squads would notice that a delicious aroma coming from Dan Marino, and they'd feel a hankering for a steak. And I told them that, and they were just looking at me, and I said, you know what? I'm just trying to make some drinks here. How do I know? This guy just came up with something like that. How do I know what? Tell me about it. You've been here about, you arrived an hour before they put the specials on the board. And I didn't eat anything. I didn't stop or anything, so I don't know that. But I figure it entertained them, And what did we do after something like that, right? We get into another debate. I don't know how we worked into that. But we started talking about the way drains drain in the southern hemisphere versus northern hemisphere. It just popped up. And they said, no, that's not true. And I said, well, I think they drain the same way. right? From some of the research I've done, limited research, but it's kind of wishy-washy either way about that answer a question, whether when you flush a toilet or drains. I don't want to get into it. I put a picture in the notes to say that. Well, I guess that's a drain, but it could be a toilet. And what I'm saying is that it goes. Most people expect it to go counterclockwise or clockwise, or depending on what it is. Like it's the opposite south of the equator in places like Australia and things like that, which is not necessarily the case. And what I found out, and what everyone found out, there's a yes and no answer to this question, like many science questions, right? So it's something called the Ciriolis Effect, or Ciriolis Effect. And it's a French science, I think Henri Ciriolis, and due to the rotation of the Earth and the way air rushes in for things like cyclones or hurricanes in the northern hemisphere, the prevailing winds and everything track counterclockwise. In the southern hemisphere, it tracks clockwise. But that's more of a perception issue, because when it comes to smaller effects like drains and things like that, it's more of a function. The direction it drains or flows is more a function of forces, the forces that are going that direction, or the shape of the drain and things like that. And it's funny how people get so locked into, when it's a difficult question, it's either yes or no. It's binary for them. They want it to be a yes or no question. They can't have this thing where it isn't. And that kind of leads me into talking about this one thing. My daughter was sent home from school today, high school, due to being, along with 39 or more other students, because they were in contact with someone who they later found out was positive for COVID-19. I hesitate whether to say the Delta variant and stuff like that. I think it's all Delta variant now. But the Keys supposedly have some of the highest positivity rates in Florida. Thus, some of the highest rates in the country, probably the world, because it's just the way it is, the way we perceive things. But people with the way they view COVID and all that stuff, they think, well, if they all have vaccines, people think, well, they all say one thing: if they all have vaccines, it wouldn't happen, or if they all wore masks, it wouldn't happen. It's all or nothing, but it's not all or nothing. It's a sliding scale, and there's a lot of people that in school that are unvaccinated, but vaccinated people can get. What we learn now is vaccinated people can be infected with COVID. What the vaccine does is prevent you from being severely ill. Now, there's some people saying that there's breakthrough infections that are causing people to be put into hospitals and things like that, and they're saying they were vaccinated and things like that. But I think it's really important for people to tell exactly what happened to them and what status they were, whether they're vaccinated or not vaccinated. Some people may be embarrassed when they get, when they go into the hospital and say, they ask them, didn't you get vaccinated? You look to be about 100 pounds overweight. And then people say, yeah, I got vaccinated. I didn't bring my vaccine card. I'm just saying it's really important to tell people exactly what happened, who you came in contact with, so they can track these things. So at school, I'm coming back from the gym. And I'm going to talk about that too. I'm coming back from the gym. I go to the supermarket, get phone calls coming in. I get some spotty information in the beginning, and no judgment on the people that gave me that, but whenever something happens, everything in the beginning is kind of spotty. And I get the call from my wife and my daughter that I need to go and pick her up at school, and you have to go and sign her out. And I show up, and there's 2 sets of information. It was like, you can't come back to school till the 26th. That would be from next Thursday, right? About 10 days from the time of infection. But from after talking to, I go to the office to sign her out. They don't know much. They know that I have to go over there and talk to the nurse. And I go over to the nurse, and the nurse is more who's talking to the kids and getting information from them. I guess the information they're getting may be who they were in contact with. But what they were doing is they were sending people that were vaccinated back to class. That I didn't understand as much, because knowing that you can get infected when you're vaccinated, why? I mean, it's just the vaccine. I mean, it's like they have an imperfect understanding. Maybe I have an imperfect understanding of the whole situation. Because vaccinated or unvaccinated protects you from getting seriously ill. It does not, vaccinated or unvaccinated does not, as we know now, protect you from spreading it to someone else. You can still get it and slough off the virus, right? So I'm talking to people and say, well, it doesn't really matter. And they said, and they did. And as it turns out, it did. She has to come home, and starting on the 21st, because her contact was on and they don't, it's anonymous. They don't tell you who it was. 5 days later, they want her to take a test, and that to be the 21st, and then she'd be able to return on the 23rd. And really, effectively only missing like a day and a half of school. A little more than a day and a half. But I understand that people don't really understand what's going on, but it's this binary thing that if you're vaccinated, you're not a threat. Well, that's not necessarily true. We know people vaccinated to get breakthrough infections and things like that. And you can be. I had to be tested coming back from Poland, even though I was vaccinated back in February, my second vaccine. And they're planning right now in the next couple of weeks to do that. And it seems like the students are unsure, and my daughter pointed out she didn't really understand why, and it makes sense not understanding, because it is rather confusing. But I did mention to my daughter, just like I mentioned to a lot of people, and you may hear me say this a lot, but history will explain and tell you who's right and who's wrong. Right? In the end, that's the way you really do. You could say when something's going on, like our pulling out of Afghanistan, people say, it's horrible, blah, 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 blah. And then last night there's talk around the bar, and people are going, listen. And there were military guys. There was a guy who was an Army officer. I think he was talking to someone else who was retired military or was in the military too. And they were saying, listen, the Army guy who was quite conservative, but he went along and said, listen, when was a good time? We shouldn't, the way we went in and where we were going in, they just didn't have any plans. And he's a very intelligent man. I disagree with him on some things, but on that one I did. But like I said with him, history will be the judge. And already 20 years into it, we got a little history. We can look back on why we got in and what we're doing in there and what happened. So people could get all upset on something like that. But, history, just like climate change. People say, well, it's not real. It's really not affecting us and stuff like that. And there's no really big deal going on. And I guess in the end, history will be the judge on climate change. So people that have their nice, beachfront properties, when they're they got 6 feet of water coming upside the house, they go and say, well, I guess I was mistaken. Right? The same thing with people that are getting COVID-19 without, people that were the vaccine, and say, well, they're making a big deal. It's just the flu. It's just the flu. And I say to them, when have you ever gone to the emergency room or ICU with the flu? Right? With the flu, I mean, when I had the flu and stuff like that, I just had wicked diarrhea and I got sick. I had a full body ache. I'm just trying not to, I guess, with that Dan Marino story, and now I'm talking about diarrhea and stuff like that. That's not really good. But I digress. It's good to be kind of flexible when it comes to getting new information, much like the Ciriolis Effect. It's like it's not all one thing or another. It's not a binary answer all the time, and sometimes you got to be a little flexible. Got to be a little flexible. It helps. Sometimes you zig when you need to zag, and zag when you need to zig, or maybe going around in circles, stuff like that. But it's good to it is good to be flexible and not so rigid, unless you're rigid. Unless you're supposed to be rigid, like a bridge. There's rigid works. The Marine Corps, and we're talking to Megan and stuff like that. They have rules there, and being rigid with discipline and training ensures that. But one of the things they do teach you for the battlefield is to be flexible. There's not always one answer. U.S. military is really good that way because they get advice. They ask for input. And a lot of other militaries in the world, it's top-down decision-making. No questions. No questions. Now, you're supposed to follow orders. Now, that's the very important thing. But when they're coming up with a plan and stuff like that, they encourage people in the lower ranks to put some input in when it's the appropriate time to do that. So, I want to talk about Alexis. Not Alexa, the Amazon. Alexis, my friend on Instagram. Or friends. And Alexa just answered. Okay. She's answering a question about herself. Come on, Alexa. Stop, Alexa. Alexa, stop. There we go. Alexa, don't give me any back talk. Jesus. Wow. I mentioned something about Alexa. Don't want to say the name because she'll start chiming in. I do appreciate that. I appreciate that she's attentive and listens to me. And some of you people listen. But my friend, who I'm not going to repeat her name, it's the same name as that. I don't want to get caught into that thing where I'm telling her to be quiet. But back and forth, told him, went through the whole thing. You heard those other things. But the new facet on it, yesterday I just went through her friends list. It's Jim, and I can understand you saying, hey, Jim, you're fucking obsessed with that. Maybe I am, because it's part of the show. I want to find out what's going on. Is it a person? Is it a group of people? Is it a profile bank, meaning that people have a couple profiles going, they're pretending like this? It's weird because they'll show a picture, they'll have a profile, and they flip between it, saying they're a girl or a guy. They forget they talk to you, they forget. So it's just like you spoke to them, you told them, and maybe they have so many people they're communicating with, they can't even remember that. But I told you that I thought if someone was so interested in you, they would do something. They would check out maybe your pictures and maybe some of the things you write. For my case, I do a podcast, so you can check that out. If you're really interested in someone, I remember dating girls where I had to go and listen. I had to go and listen to them play music. Whether they were, and most of them were good. There were a lot of guitar players. A lot of guitar players. I'm thankful for that, because if some girl whipped out a recorder and said, "Yeah, I'm a musician," and brought out a recorder and started playing like the Titanic theme, I would just, oh God. Oh, and that's a separate note. But what was I talking about there with it? See, the old age thing's kicking fucking in. Oh my God. I better hit the explicit thing. I said fuck. So what was I? Oh, Alexis. So, I almost said the name. Okay, she didn't say it. So I'm checking out the list of her friends, and I'm looking at it, and there's distinct thing. There's a bunch of friends that are the other type of accounts that are similar to hers, where they have an attractive young woman or a guy. I guess they do that. Women, they go after women that way. But I looked at all the guys, and oh my God, did I get really, I don't even know what to describe the feeling. I said, it's kind of like being sat at that table. Remember the movie The Wedding Singer? And they had a table of the goofballs, sitting there. I hate to call them goofballs, but they were goofballs. People, they put them all together at a table, and they said, well, I don't know what to do with these people, so I'm going to put them all together at this one table. Well, that's what the friends list looked like. It looked like older guys, and they got their pictures, and they don't even know how they look, and some of them have their shirts off. I think I had a shirt off picture. I don't think I ever had it on my profile picture one time. I might have, but when I did, I was super lean and strong looking, cut. But I don't think I ever did a profile picture. I think it's kind of like, oh wow, here I am, look at me, right? I think I did years ago. I think I might have had one. I'm sitting on a sailboat and I'm eating on a sailboat under sail. I'm eating some cheese and crackers or something like that. Talk about the hubris of doing something like that. But I look at my picture and I say, my picture's nothing like that. My picture's nothing like that. And the one she friended my Instagram account. That's my artwork from my podcast. And I just realized that, wait a second, it's Key's Bartender, and it's a picture it's an altered picture. It's using effects, whatever effects that were on my phone at the time, and I adjusted it, and that became my logo for the show. And it's me holding up a shot glass to my eye, and I think I had a goatee at the time. But the picture is enhanced some way, and it's not a straight up picture. It's kind of pixelated with some kind of tile effect and stuff like that. And I'm looking and I said, even then, if it was just a straight up picture of me, like from Facebook, I could probably accept it better. Well, maybe not. But this one, I go, wow, you don't even know what I look like here and stuff like that. But then she would have to see, I don't know, they've friended me and it's got Keys Bartender and I'm a podcast. And I go, wow, I don't even have a straight up picture, not like the rest of these guys. I was going to say the rest of these losers. And that's such a rude thing to say. But they're like middle class or low middle class lonely men. They're pictures. And they're ripe for the picking. I guess they look ripe for the picking to these people that run these profiles where they have like an attractive girl and say, oh, I'm tired of guys playing games. I want someone mature. They want someone that has like $500. That's it, because they're going to take, if they're lucky, they may get to $500 or a couple thousand or something like that to go and talk about, oh, I'm so hungry, I need some money for my rent, or I want to come out and see you. You see it on this, pretty much it's like every Ukrainian girl on 90 Day Fiancé. Oh, send me some money, I'll come and see you. Oh, I'm planning to see you. Oh, I had got in trouble. I can't go in. And blah, blah, blah. And the person say, but please, I'm going to come again. I say, well, no, I used the money. The ticket's not refundable. Whatever they do. It sounds like I know a lot. But I watched a 90 Day Fiancé. That's where I got my information from. Right? So when I first saw the list of people, I said, am I included in this group? For God's sakes, I'm a bartender. If I was single at this time, I would not be trolling for 20-something years old on Instagram. No, it's not my speed. Not that I don't appreciate looking at a 20-something-year-old. I just, that's not my ideal relationship. I've dated younger women when I was single and stuff like that, and I knew that there's a certain amount of energy and interest that is divergent sometimes, and you don't necessarily want someone who's interested in what you want when they're that young. That would be sad, wouldn't it? Oh yeah, I'd like to move into a retirement community. No, you don't fucking want to move into a retirement community. You're still partying and stuff like that. My wife still likes to party. She wants to go down to, and I look forward to it, go down to Key West this Monday and Tuesday. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's supposed to be nice and stuff like that, and I like to do that. I don't drink anymore. Kind of takes out the wind out of the sails for that thing, but there's other things. I have a good time. You got to let me run free, though. When I say run free, I'm not going to leave her and stuff like that. I mean the mouth. I'm going to talk. I want to say some shit. I want to do some weird stuff. I like doing weird stuff. I don't mean saying anything personal, like what are we doing, in our own privacy. I'm talking about out when I'm talking to people. I like some weird encounters, weird conversations, something nuanced. So, getting back to Alexis, I'm like this. Oh, okay. I mentioned the podcast and stuff like that. Oh, I don't know podcasts and stuff like that. You're 29 years old and you don't know what a podcast, you don't do podcasts? I don't think so. You're using social media. You post a couple of pictures on it, stuff like that. And I guess for this account, they have a couple extra pictures than they normally have. Normally, they only put 2 pictures up or something like that. I'm fascinated by this. You can tell. Just fascinated. Who doesn't like to be trolled? And from my experience, I was telling people I never knew. Every so often, I hear after the fact when a girl says, "Oh, I used to have a crush on you," blah 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 blah. Not all the time, but sometimes. And I'm like that Woody Allen saying, and I know Woody Allen's kind of creepy and all that stuff with the stuff with Mia Farrow and the stuff with his Soon Yi and shit like that. But Woody Allen has this thing. It's kind of a passive, kind of negative self-image thing. I wouldn't want to belong to. I think it's him, or it could be Groucho Marx. I wouldn't want to belong to a club that would have me as a member. Which is really a horrible thing to say about yourself. But, you say, like, if some girl says, "Oh, I think you're hot and you're very sexy," and all that stuff, you go, what is fucking wrong with you? That's what you're thinking in your head when someone says something like that sometimes. You go, what is wrong with you that you think I'm attractive, fun, and think? Well, that's because you have a poor self-image. I have come to, over the years, realizing that every trash can has its lid, and I shouldn't say trash can, but everything fits, and there's something for everyone. And for me, I wasn't like very shy. Shy people have a tough time. They only get introduced to very few people because they don't like to be introduced to anybody. If you're a glad-hander like myself, you come in contact with someone, and every so often you're going to run into a person, the round peg and round hole thing. Well, oh yeah, this is a good fit. Oh, I'm attracted to you. Blah 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 blah. All these things, they like what you like, and all this stuff, and you go, wow, I like that. I like this person. I like what they're interested in. But I did have this conversation with Abby. It's so interesting to see new relationships. Every time you see new relationships, it amazes me that if you've been around the block a couple times, that I'm not saying you're hoodwinked, and I'm not trying to think, but it all wears off eventually. And the real beauty in it is being loving and passionate after that initial shine wore off. Right? Because everyone could be excited in the beginning. It's new. You don't know anything about that person. The other person, and you yourself included, are pretending to be the best person you can be and trying to be reflective of what that person's interests are. If you're attracted to that person, that would be the smart thing to do. But the drawback from that is you're not being yourself. So eventually when people get to know you and you start, the newness wears off, kind of like that new car thing, and all of a sudden there's a crack in the tail light and a scratch on the bumper, a nick in the tire. You start accumulating these things, and you go, really, oh wow, there's another one. There's a brand new one. There's another person. I don't know them. They don't know me. We can pretend to be two different people in the beginning again. That's the beauty of a long-term relationship. Because they know you and they're still with you. It's fucking amazing. I mean, all that stuff. I mean, after I know that there's probably a lot more to learn of me, but after 12 years of being together with Abby, she knows me. She knows those things. I mean, even if I tell him like this, she knows the good and the bad. And sometimes we don't, in relationships where relationships fall apart, the good, we start ignoring all the good, start focusing on the bad, and start looking for something else that's similar, something more in line with what we want. And maybe, I understand the argument for saying, hey, why not be happy? Always look for that. And it's nice. If you take care of yourself, maybe you can do that a bunch of times. Maybe a bunch, like I've had a lot of new relationships. And some of them were nude, I guess, relationships. But I really enjoyed the new relationships. I didn't really know what was going on when it was going on. Sometimes when you meet people in there, you could be like physically attracted to someone. And one girl, and I mentioned this probably months ago, I was working in catering, and there was this pretty redhead. And she was young, 5 years younger than me. I was, probably significantly younger. I think I was 29. And she was like 22. But we had, I think, a physical attraction for each other. And I kind of pride myself on kind of being a little nerdy. I come from that specific school of people, nerdy. But I'm kind of nerdy, athletic, healthy, kind of weird. So, I got a bit of nerd in me. Well, this girl was full-blown nerd. She was X-Men aficionado. Back then, when I didn't know what X-Men meant. It's a Marvel comic thing. And she said on the weekends, she told me when we were talking, we were starting chatting, and right before I was going to ask her out on a date, luckily I wasn't a boss. I was kind of a co-worker. I was supervisor, but I wasn't her supervisor. I just handed the thing. So right before I asked her out, she started telling me about what she did with her friends, and they would dress up as these different characters and go out together. She was flame because her hair was red. And I go, oh, really? I'm listening, and she's going on, and she started out at 10, and then moved down to a 9, and it was like a countdown. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. Get me the fuck away from this person. Nowadays, as an older person, I can understand people being, what did they call that? It was It's a type of real light autism where you're just fascinated by some things. I probably have it too. I probably have it with history. I get old and go, oh, really? Tell me more. Tell me more about that. Oh, the 18th century. Blah, 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 blah. And get a little hard on from it. A little. This is a little hard on. No, but it's funny. It's funny when there's that in the beginning what attracts you and doesn't attract you, and what you're pretending. So when you're closer enough to being that, sometimes you change what you like and what you don't like because of the physical attraction. You say, "Oh, I'd like to try this sometime." You try. "Oh, this girl doesn't talk a lot, and I appreciate that. Let me do the talking." Well, usually sometimes people say, "Hey, I want to get a little feedback." Obviously, you probably think that's a little difficult for me because I talk all the fucking time. But this thing with Alexis. Oh, I may have said that. Did she come up? No, good. I always think I'm waiting for Alexa. I'm going to say it real low. Alexa. She might pop up the my Amazon thing. But Alexis, she or he or group of people, they go, "Oh, I'm going to watch the podcast. I'm going to listen to podcasts. I'm going to go and do this and stuff like that." No, you're not. If you were interested, you would have done it already. It's like a guy talking to a guy. Right? "Oh, yeah, I love ballet. You're a ballerina? I love ballet." No, you're not. No, you don't. You just like her because she's tiny. Right? You like tiny girls. Something like that. Who knows? But I think it's interesting. I still haven't really uncovered that. I'd like to know. I'd like to interview someone who's on one of those profile banks where they're trying to sucker people in. If anybody knows anybody, that'd be great. I would love to know someone and say, "Hey, listen, you work for that? You run a site like that? We could talk anonymously. You don't have to say who you are. Or you could send me I guess you could probably send me a picture of someone you lifted from the internet like everyone else does. Someone, I guess the more sophisticated these people become, the more likely they are to get more nimble in doing it, like posting new pictures. "Oh, here's some food. Here's me with my dog. Here's me with my dog in my lingerie. Looking, you like my ass?" Things like that. Well, I think we have enough silliness for today. I think I'll be able to talk to you tomorrow. I had a great time talking to you. If you like the show, please share it with your friends. I did mention all the downloads in Yalaha. Thank you. But you can always send me an email. Send me an email to jim@keysbartender.com. Megan, I asked your mom to tell me, why don't you just send me, if you have any questions, you want me to talk about something, I'll be happy to do that. I won't try to force anything. It's me being me. So, like I said, like us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. It's Keys Bartender. You can leave a comment if you like, or send me an email to jim@keysbartender.com. Share it with your friends and family. Download a bunch of them. I'm getting a lot of activity. I might be able to do more shows. Show some more pictures. Maybe do some fake profiles myself. But no, I don't think I would ever do that. I wouldn't want it. That'd be kind of shame, getting a lonely person to really like you and stuff like that. I kind of do that at the bar sometimes. When you're serving people, when you're being nice and stuff like that. But I'm just a nice person anyway. I think I am. I hope I am. Maybe I'm not. That would make me worse of an asshole. But, I'm not going to think through this whole thing. I'm going to save that for tomorrow. Just like Scarlett O'Hara. I don't think I can. I don't handle. I'll just think about it tomorrow. It's the end of Gone with the Wind. Okay, well, this is Jim the Keys Bartender. I'd like to thank you for listening. Here's a little music for you, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.